3, 2, 1. What up, bro?
What up, YouTube? What's up, everybody?
Darko Franjic, Boo's coach.
Coach, Pilates instructor.
The beard.
The beard.
Strength training and Pilates combo.
Yep.
What are we finding? What are the members reporting? How's it all going, bro?
Winning.
Winning?
I'd say, just like I've sort of experienced in my one-on-one, more clinical sort of work that I do, it's been fairly successful as a group training style as well, where we combine the methodology that we use with our strength and conditioning classes, and then complementing that with what we're doing in our Pilates group sessions, and then also with some of the individualized programming that we're doing for each member that needs to work on sort of specific things as well. So from beginner to more advanced sort of trainers, we're finding across the board that there's been a pretty good success rate where if somebody, let's say, is coming in as a beginner and they're finding that they're lacking stability, strength, flexibility, some positional mobility as well, downstairs in the strength and conditioning classes, whether they've been doing that through a one-on-one session or coming into our group classes, most of the time it's been group classes, people have been coming up and doing some Pilates sessions, and then they find that they're improving in the strength and conditioning sessions as well with some of those compound lifts. We're quite thorough with good warm-ups and good drills downstairs in the gym as well. Sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you need to put in like a proper, 45-minute to an hour session where you're really working on specific weaknesses that you might have or instabilities. And if you do that on a regular basis, all you find is that you're just moving better downstairs. And we've been noticing that, there's been a few different examples in the group classes where somebody's even pulled up with a little bit of an injury, and we take them out and prioritize doing some extra Pilates sessions throughout the week. And then within a week or two, they're usually back to, full function, I guess, and hitting some pretty heavy numbers downstairs as well. So,
I've noticed what you're saying, bro, is I've noticed the same thing, that members that come in that are brand new to lifting and haven't really done much strength training in the last, sometimes 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Pilates has been a powerful tool to get them going even before they start to get serious with resistance training. And sometimes it's we've noticed it's Pilates only for a little while.
Yep.
And then we incorporate strength training on top. Sometimes it's Pilates and strength training at the same time.
It's huge. It's just you feel your body very differently when you're doing things that are very isolated to each specific muscle group. So it's just a good way to build body awareness. And I think that doesn't stop at all as your movements downstairs get more advanced, and I guess you start adding in heavier weight and more repetition, that stability and kind of control becomes more and more important as well. So I wouldn't even just keep it to like that beginner level. I think across the board, even to some of the more advanced lifters, they're seeing that tweaking just a couple of little things is helping them to break those little plateaus and sort of walls that we hit from time to time in our training as well. Sometimes just taking a step back as well from some of the heavier lifting. Like I've done that myself recently. I pulled back, for a good, I think like 12 weeks. I've been doing 2 weight training sessions a week, and I've been hammering away at Pilates like I'd say 4 to 6 days a week. And my programs have been quite specific with what I've been doing in my Pilates as well. So to build a bit of extra hip and glute stability, and then more shoulder mobility. And just going back into my training, some of the heavier stuff like 3 weeks ago, I noticed huge improvements. I haven't reached those numbers that I used to sort of hit before, but I'm easing myself back into it a little bit. But I've just noticed my body feels completely different, particularly some of the issues that I had with sort of a bit of thoracic extension. That's something that I focused heavily on with my Pilates training that I've been doing. And I've seen massive improvements where, my first squat session, I was like, man, I can't believe that I can get into some of these positions. I've changed my deadlift stance. I used to do a sumo deadlift previously. I've gone back to doing conventionals now. And if anyone's seen some of my old deadlift videos compared to now,
big difference, eh?
Yeah, man, like huge. Even at those light weights, I wasn't able to get into a good sort of what I would call safe deadlift position. Whereas now I feel quite comfortable getting into a nice sort of neutral spine position. I feel a lot tighter through my lift, so yeah, a lot safer doing the lifts as well. So now it's just a matter of good programming, consistency, and then I'll probably get back and further above some of the numbers that I used to pull, hopefully. So it's been, for me personally, it's been a good combo. I know you've been doing some...
Man, it's been working wonders.
Yeah. And this is like the first time that you've really kind of immersed into it a little bit
I've dabbled around a bit before, but now I'm really trying to ramp it up. So there was a good training week last week, I think, or the week before, where I hit 3 Pilates in 1 week, and I hit 3 weights in 1 week. And my coach was going, "Whoa, bro, like you're moving a lot better." My lifts, I noticed an improvement, and it was within 7 days, man. It was at the end of after that week. It's crazy how quickly I started to notice the benefits from incorporating Pilates on top of my strength training.
Because you're getting a lot of... Everything works against us on that daily basis, where you're just sitting, even with your training downstairs, like it's just a lot of compression on the body. So same thing that I always say, like it's important to keep up strength downstairs, but you don't want to end up as somebody super, super strong, but too rigid, where your body just loses that functionality of just feeling good on a day-to-day basis. Like no one really likes to sit there and after an hour you feel your hip cramping up or your lower back starts to seize up. And I think that's where the benefit really, really comes in. If you do have spots that are sort of coming in acutely or even chronic sort of stuff, just throwing in 1 or 2 sessions a week, even here or there, like this week you might not have done as much, but because you've done the extra mobility work the week before, you're just not going to be seizing up after those sessions that where you're hitting it a little bit heavier and harder. So it's,
I want to fit some in this week personally with my own training, because I have noticed the benefits, man. It's a wonder, and I often think this, I wonder why there aren't more coaches incorporating this, and why. I know the Pilates world is new, and in terms of, I mean, it's not new, it's been around for a while, but when we first started, it was seen as like this thing that girls do, and this thing that's like a low-key fluffy exercise, whereas now I think the trend with athletes and like high achievers out there in different sports, in football, in tennis, in rugby, in lifting, it's now starting to creep in, but I wonder why there isn't more of it. What do you reckon?
I think just because originally it was kind of kicked off as, it was very physiotherapy based. Yeah. I didn't really, you were either like, from what I noticed when I started doing my Pilates sort of training myself, it was mainly physios, and then you had like your pure Pilates instructors that didn't really do any other type of training that were doing it. So from the physiotherapy world, I suppose, it would be seen more as a rehab tool, because that physios tend to work more clinically a lot of the time, even within like your big sporting clubs and things like that. It's still, they're the rehab sort of specialist, I suppose, traditionally. And I think Pilates has crept its way into the performance world, where people have started incorporating it just as sort of warm-up drills or as recovery, and over time it's just built up into something that has come out into the mainstream a little bit more as well, where people are just noticing strength improvements from just doing Pilates, stability improvements from just doing Pilates. So it's no longer just seen as a tool where we're rehabbing urological issues or musculoskeletal stuff. Because it seems to work so well in that world, there's no reason that it can't work well within the performance world as well. Often those rehab exercises will transfer over to injury prevention, and then also strengthening work as well. So I know a lot of strength and conditioning coaches still do mobility drills on the gym floor using bands and broomsticks and that sort of thing. But I think with Pilates, because you can target specific muscles so well and so easily just on the one machine, it's quite an easy setup as well. We're slowly going to start to see an increase in the use of Pilates within the strength and conditioning and performance world as well.
We were just saying over the next 5 years,
yeah.
How do we think Pilates is going to?
I think it's going to break through massively. Look, the term Pilates as well it's quite loose.
No.
I hear it sort of being thrown around, and you see like your traditional floor drills being called Pilates drills as well.
Yeah.
I think there's just a focus on I guess Pilates and mobility being thrown into training across the board. You see a lot of even like your top tier sporting teams. I know I use this as an example for a lot of guys as well, but like Ronaldo, for example, is huge.
Dude's got a Pilates reformer in his house.
In his house, it does it daily, and I've read some of the, I guess some of the coaching that he gets put through as well. And Pilates is a huge part of it. And he's a player who hasn't sort of been, injury ridden and that sort of thing. He's had a pretty sort of good, clean career as far as that goes.
On the field, he's a beast.
Yeah, the guy's just an animal. Because
yeah.
performance-wise, especially when you're looking at things like running and, I guess, shoulder and hip and knee mechanics and stuff like that, it's, like I said, it's absolutely huge because you can really target those imbalances and work on, I guess, proper movement, which when you're looking at technique at that top-end level, small improvements will mean, massive improvements on the field. So you might get a little bit more range through like your hip extension or your shoulder extension on the reformer, but that transfers to you, not fatiguing out on the field where you might not start feeling a tight hip, and you can perform better and longer throughout your game as well. I've got a couple of soccer players that I look after, a couple of basketball players as well, and they've sort of seen those improvements as well. I guess because they're dedicated to their particular sport, they almost don't do too much other conditioning and strength work as well within the gym, and doing like 1 or 2 sessions a week in here just for 30 or 45 minutes, they've noticed, I guess fatigue rates are down, recovery is a lot better as well. They're not pulling up as stiff and tight in some of those little niggly spots because they're incorporating good sort of stability and good recovery into their training as well. So I think definitely over the next 5 years, well, hopefully, we'll see it sort of come out into the mainstream a bit more. Particularly with men, I think it's starting to become more sort of popular and accepted for a lot of males to be doing Pilates as well. And recently I've sort of met a few other guys that are getting into their own coaching and their own practice of Pilates as well.
Yeah, I think it's got a long way to go. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of our members come in and they're like, "Whoa, you guys have a male Pilates coach? That's awesome!" Like, it's something that the men can go, "Oh, okay." Yeah. It's not just for women and just for girls. It can seriously help their training as well. And
I think it's important to sort of, I guess, spread the word, spread the good word about Pilates, because anybody that I've spoken to, and this kind of seems like you're spruiking it to the male population, but in a way I am. Any guy that I've met in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years that I have been sort of doing this a bit more full on, anyone that's done Pilates has seen huge improvements, whether it be from a pain relief and a rehab perspective or a performance perspective, massive improvements. We had somebody walk in last week here, and he was like, when I spoke to him about teaching Pilates, and he goes, "Man, it actually completely changed my life." He was somebody who was ridden with injuries and pain, and kind of through training, he was always feeling like, I guess he was feeling all that compression on the body. And then he said he started doing privately about 3 times a week. He was doing half-hour sessions elsewhere. He's a guy from Melbourne. And he, within sort of 3 to 6 months, he noticed massive improvements in the way that he was moving. So I think the more that sort of stuff gets spoken about, and that's why I'm so passionate about kind of not being pushy with it, but really just getting somebody up here and showing them within one session how locked up their body actually really is. And that kind of makes them go, man, like I really should be able to do that a lot easier. So I'm pretty passionate about pushing it in terms of, I guess, promoting it to the male population, and then definitely everybody across the board as well. Yeah,
I've personally found with my own training that I didn't think I was as tight in some of those systems as I ended up being when I got into Pilates. Like, man, why is this so hard?
Yeah.
Why is this stretch or this hold? Damn, okay, I can improve here. And then I think that's been a good learning for myself.
Yeah.
Just going, yeah, okay, like it's not just, I thought I've been stretching my adductors and,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Until you get right in there to those insertion points and specific positions as well. Because when you're looking at smaller muscles, it's not just a matter of like, oh yeah, man, just touch your toes, you know, just reach forward or bend your back into a certain position. You've got to, you really want to look at how you're getting into that position as well. You know, whether you're opening certain joints up or whether you're just kind of like jacking your body into a position and going, oh yeah, I can feel something pulling. If you're super stiff, you're going to feel that doing like no matter what. So sometimes certain things will feel good for your body, but if you're not really getting into that position correctly, then you're kind of, there are risks involved with that as well, where you can overstretch incorrectly as well. You can do mobility drills incorrectly as well. So it's important to kind of get into those positions correctly.
I think the term that you used with me was powerful. You're like, man, stop muscling through it. You've got to like articulate your body more and get into that, get into the stretch a bit more. And that made sense because I felt like I was just trying to power through the mermaid. You're like, man, breathe,
reach,
open up. Yeah. Those cues really helped me a lot.
Yeah, because like I said, you know, like a mermaid is quite a basic exercise, but I see it done day in and day out, and there's different versions of it that aren't done on the reformers or anything like that. And you know, I'm not going to say percentage wise, but a lot of the time you just see it done and you're like, oh man, if you just did this one little bit, or if you actually took a breath out as you're reaching, you would get so much more benefit and decompression out of that exercise. So because Pilates is seen as such a sort of rehab-based form of exercise, it's quite easy to get somebody comfortably into a session doing things with their body that they may not have felt as comfortable doing like down on the gym floor. And then from there, once they realize, and I show them pretty quickly that Pilates is not as easy as it seems, but not as sort of, I guess, low impact as most people seem to think it is. You can take your Pilates practice to a whole nother level with some of the more advanced stuff, but with like your more clinical sort of patients that come in, once you show them that their body is capable of building stability and strength on the reformers, it just makes those people a little bit more comfortable with going down into the gym floor and then moving on to even, you know, some of our performance-based classes as well. So that's been probably one of the coolest things about working here, where there's been a number of people that have come through, you know, as chronic pain patients, and they've worked through some of those chronic issues, mainly through Pilates with my own one-on-one clients that I've sort of worked with. And then we've kind of gone, all right, man, we've settled that pain down, we're moving well, the body awareness is there. Let's take you on to the next phase and sort of get you just performing better. We're no longer managing any of our pain. We're, you know, relatively pain-free as long as we maintain good mobility, good movement. Let's start now setting different goals. You know, do you want to build up a squat or a deadlift? Do you want to go back to running? Is there a particular activity or sport that you like to sort of play? And that's been quite powerful for me as a trainer and a coach and a clinician, or whatever you want to call it, where you get these people coming in a lot of pain, and then you see them in here, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks later, they're in our group sessions. They're amongst, I guess, your healthy population, doing exactly what everybody else is doing, and they're no longer kind of like, oh man, you know, I'm going to be in this rehab phase forever, going to GPs. They kind of move on with their life from those injuries as well. And that's been, I think, for me, one of the most rewarding things about, I guess, bringing this method that we have together, where we strongly encourage people to lift heavy and go hard in the gym, but we're also big on kind of just building the proper biomechanics of the body as well. I think that's something that early on, like, I didn't even really consider within my own training or even as a coach.
Yeah.
And now we've got a space and a facility where we've got full freedom to develop that, and it's been really, really amazing. And it's been so cool to see the progress of some of our patients and members as well that have been coming in. So, yeah.
I think, like you say, man, it's rewarding for us as coaches to be a part of that journey. And the feedback that we get from our community is that it's quite empowering for them, because they go from injury and just trying to deal with these chronic pain or mechanical issues that they've had for such a long time, where they've just tried to survive and manage and keep it at bay, and then through Pilates practice they're able to resolve all of that and then move on to performance. So then they can, whether their goals are to look good or feel good or perform on a football field or cycling or swimming, it's irrelevant. It's nice to see that transition from injury and rehab all the way through performance and optimizing their performance.
Because look, it really doesn't matter what your goal is, whether you're someone coming in as like, low level sort of rehab. If you're not doing these little things on a weekly basis, so if you're not sort of looking after the proper movement, long term you're just going to be you're not going to be better off, put it that way. So it's I think it's been good that we've been able to sort of bring the method together, man. It's something that I've sort of practiced a lot behind the scenes as well. Like, it's not something that I've really pushed as far as like social media and stuff goes. Or a lot of people don't even know that I teach Pilates. Like, when I tell them, they're like, "Wow, man, how long have you been doing that?" Like, a couple of days, and I'm like, "Nah, man, it's been 7 years now." I'll keep saying like 5, but it's been more like 7 that I've been practicing it. So it's been I know, honestly, with my own training, like I always admit in the gym, because I coach myself a lot as well, I write my own programs. I'm guilty of not doing what we sort of promote as well sometimes, and it's good for me to take a step back every now and then as well. Like I said, last 12 weeks I hadn't touched the heavy weight really at all, and I got right into my mobility work and stability work and just sort of decompressing things a little bit, and it's making my training now a lot more enjoyable as well. So it just reiterates that point of how well the method actually works. So yeah, it's been pretty cool, and I'm glad that you're getting a lot out of it.
I'm learning,
as well.
man. Yeah, I am getting definitely getting a lot out of Pilates, and I like that I'm feeling the benefits with my strength training.
I think it'll be cool to sort of see how you roll into. I know there's been like talks of maybe another competition or something.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, fuck
yep.
yeah.
Heck yeah. We're going to do another comp either later this year, depending on how football goes, or maybe definitely next year.
Yeah.
My goal is to do at least one per year, and then sometimes if the opportunity presents itself, more than one.
Yeah.
Good opportunity for us to wrap up the podcast.
Yeah, cool.
Today's been heavily about Pilates. If you had to give our community... I don't like doing this because it's like, top 3 tips. But if you had to give them tips for, anything Pilates related as to maybe why it's important or what they can do or their take-home messages to wrap up.
I think if you can incorporate it into your weekly training regularly, even once a week, you will see huge benefits. What I encourage a fair bit of is, if you're finding, whether you're coming to ZAR Athletica or whether you're practicing this somewhere else maybe, if you're finding that there are certain things where you are, I guess, struggling in the classes that you might be doing or the one-on-one training that you're doing, get some tips off your coach or off your trainers, or DM us or hit us up for some advice that's a little bit more specific, and practice some of those movements at home. The cool thing about, I guess, Pilates practice and some of your mobility work and sort of stability work is you really can work on it, a little bit more casually as well. Using the reformers, there's definitely benefits to that, But I think if you can throw it in, some of the mobility work, I always say I just chuck it in when I'm laying around at home, watching telly, playing with my kid, or rolling around on the floor. I try and do some stretching and mobility there as well. I think don't be afraid to sort of take a step back and regress as well. If you are finding that you're sort of being limited by certain things in your training in the gym, or if you play sport specifically, take a step back, look at where your movement is actually breaking down, and take the proper amount of time to work through that. I think in a world of quick fixes, we forget sometimes that it takes years and years to build up chronic injuries, definitely, more acute ones as well. That's usually a biomechanics problem. And if you take the right amount of time and you're working with the right people to sort of, I guess, teach you the correct movement patterns, if you dedicate a proper amount of time to it, when you do go back to that high performing stuff that you might be doing, you'll definitely find that you get improvements. And that works across the board. If you're just looking at sort of being generally pain-free and moving well, I think dedicate some time to some proper sort of biomechanics training and proper movement, even if it's at quite a low level. Sometimes you're going to get a lot more benefit from just doing kind of the easy stuff and making your body feel good, as opposed to just trying to get super strong in the gym. Sometimes less is more, I suppose, when you're looking at the intensity and what you're doing in the gym as well. So, yeah.
That's powerful. I think we've both worked with a lot of people in the past where their approach has been laser focused, and it's like, nope, I'm going to power through this injury. I'm just going to keep grinding.
Yeah.
And maybe we've been guilty of it ourselves over the years, where it's like, no, I'm just going to put that aside and just keep pushing, and then it only comes back to bite us in the foot in the future.
It's hard to detach from that high performance world, because we always have that attitude of like, man, I used to be able to do this. Yeah. It's like, well, man, you're not even going to be able to do that if you continue on, training through these injuries and incorrect movement patterns.
Neglecting the recovery. Yeah.
At some point, I haven't seen a body within my sort of practice and training that I've been doing. I haven't seen a body that successfully worked through injury, put it that way. It's if you don't do the correct things, and if you don't take a step back and look at what the actual cause of the problem is, it's probably very unlikely that you're going to feel better long-term type of thing. And I guess we've got to, when you're looking at treating specific symptoms as well, one of the things that I think this isn't something that I thought of, definitely. I'm pretty sure I've seen it a few times, but it's more of like treat the person, not the actual problem. So each individual that comes through, like you get 5-6 different people presenting with the same problem, same sort of pain patterns or, movement issues, and the approach will be, the thing that works for them is actually completely different, because their pain tolerance might be different. How often they're able to get into the gym might be different. Their exercise adherence may not be as good as someone else. So it is quite specific. Make sure you give yourself, I guess, a proper assessment of, how long will I need to get back to moving properly and correctly and feeling good.
It's individualized.
Yeah, very individualized. Yeah.
Good opportunity for us to wrap it up. Thank you, bro. Cool. Talking about Pilates and pain today, I think we'll definitely continue to do this and reflect and bring as much value to our community as much as we can.
Hopefully.
I've certainly noticed a lot of benefits from the Pilates side of things.
And I look forward to seeing it sort of, roll on and develop, and more people start to engage with us as far as some of the Pilates practice goes.
And I'd love to see more strength coaches get involved with it as well. Throughout Brisbane and throughout Australia.
So if you are a strength and conditioning coach that's looking to sort of, I guess, develop their own professional skills and get some extra benefit for your clients, feel free to hit us up. And if there's more technical questions that you have to ask or more clinical sort of stuff that you need to know, doors always open. Where we are, 7/8 Leopold Street, Newstead.
Thank you, bro. To our community, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Drop a like. hit the subscribe button, do the follow. You know what you got to do. Thank you, guys.
Nice. Thank you.
Oos.